guest this week on Word of Movement is, for me, the quintessential guest for the show. Farid Herrera has been around for a long time, and not just with parkour. In this three-part interview, we discover his own path, traced by parkour, matured by Capoeira, sustained by the love to move. From his experience developing the Parkour Dance Company project, we also discuss topics that range from the trivial to the microscopic. I hope you enjoy our run through the stories of this very fascinating mover. This is Farid Herrera, and this is Word of Movement. Hey Farid, how's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good, quite good. Let's start at the beginning, man. First of all, we were just talking before we started. The first and only time we saw each other was back in 2013.
It was.
In Hong Kong. We went for I don't know, man. It was like a workshop kind of thing, but it wasn't really a workshop, and we're just sharing about movement and parkour, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
What did you think of it?
Yeah. So what I can remember was the Hong Kong Free Sports Festival, right?
Free Space, I think.
Free Space, that's it. Yeah.
Like
Free Space Fest, that's it, in 2013. And actually, I knew very little about what we were supposed to be doing. I just got an invite from a good friend of mine, Danny, and he sort of invited me to go along with Martin Tucker from the UK also. And he said we were supposed to, I guess, deliver some workshops. So we had a little time to think about what we wanted to do, and I think essentially what our idea of it was. So we got together, us three, to sort of discuss what we were going to be doing essentially, and our idea was to try and sort of recreate a space that sort of gave birth to parkour. Essentially, that was like the idea, the goal behind it. So we didn't go there with a mindset of teaching anything specific, or we didn't really have a syllabus or a specific target. We want these guys to do this. It was just, I think Danny's idea was to recreate what he called the space that sort of spawned parkour, and so that was kind of the goal, and I think he was sort of at the forefront of that, and so essentially that's how we met. We were all hanging out there at this festival, and it was really cool.
It was very nice, and hanging out for a week in Hong Kong, and a very special city, a very weird city, but the atmosphere was actually quite good all throughout the week, and I sometimes think of it and I miss it a lot, because I wish it could have been longer. It could have been like 2-3 weeks maybe.
I think so.
It would have been nice.
Yeah, for sure. I think so. It's quite hard. It's hard to condense, I guess, the ideas that we had in mind. It's hard to condense them in. Essentially, we only really had like 2-3 days.
Yeah, true.
So, yeah.
Tell me, because I also don't know much about you, and tell our viewers a little bit about yourself. How did you start with, I don't know, movement, and how did you get involved in parkour, or how far did you go, and just tell us a little bit about how it all started for you, your story.
Yeah, so it was quite a while ago now. It was quite a while ago at school. I'm 28 now, and I was probably about 14, 15, and I was at school. And sort of my only point of reference back then were sort of like the obvious choice, which you might hear, obviously Jackie Chan movies, etc. That was like kind of my only point of reference. So other than that, I had no idea really what I was doing. But also, quite strangely and luckily, one might say, that the school I went to was like architecturally very sound for parkour. Like my school was really, it was mad. It had like loads of rails everywhere. It had quite solid concrete structures that was sort of a strange perfect height for parkour, like storage boxes, and just weird sets of stairs and all that kind of stuff. So actually, from a parkour perspective, it was quite inspiring to move. Like it was literally like it was a spot, as they would refer to it nowadays. Like my school was a spot. So yeah, I just remember. I remember. Not being able to wait for lunchtime so I could go out and like vault this rail and like underbar it and do all this stuff that I thought I was somehow sort of semi-creating and copying stuff that I'd seen Jackie Chan do. And yeah, it was all quite fun at the time, all quite innocent. And eventually I sort of got my friends on board. I was like, oh, guys, come check this out. Can you do this? Blah, blah, blah. Can you do that? And then they'd come along. And we just ended up like us meeting every lunchtime at this one rail at school, just to vault it and play around it, essentially. And that was kind of how I started. And I think it was in 2000 or 2001. The quite infamous now BBC advert Rush Hour came out, where David Bell's sort of like running across the rooftops to try and get home to watch a program on BBC or something. And that came out on the TV, and my friends all saw it and they were like, "Whoa, have you seen this? Have you seen this guy?" And I guess that's when I sort of realised, I was like, cool, you know, whoa, like, well, you know, there's other people out there doing this mad stuff, you know, like we're not alone. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
So that was also quite exciting. And then obviously the internet really started picking up back then as well. It was like early 2000s. So yeah, then we just started going on the internet and watching all sorts of crazy characters like Joe Ago. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I remember him, yeah.
Super old school, like freak of nature with like, he could jump so high, and he was doing all sorts of mad stuff as well. So that was kind of, yeah, those were kind of like my inspirations and my beginnings. It was quite parkour based, vaulting and all this kind of stuff. Was super passionate about that, man. Like that was the future for me essentially back then. Yeah. Well, it is still now.
Yeah, of course. It's always part of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether you want it or not, it's there.
It's there, man. Yeah.
So when did you meet Danny, by the way? Was it when you started a bit after, or?
Meeting Danny was quite a funny one actually, because I was at Tim's house, Tim Sheaf, in Derby, and I was out there with my friend Bobby. I don't know if you've heard of him, Bobby Gordon Smith.
Yeah.
So we were hanging out, and then we went back to Derby with Tim just to hang out over there. And I remember it was around January, which is when obviously Danny's birthday is, and Tim was going. So Danny's birthday's always been sort of like an open invite kind of thing, right? It's like if you're around, just rock up, like, and it's all good.
Awesome.
So that's sort of what I thought essentially. You know, that's what Tim said to us. He said, "Yeah, look, I'm going to Danny's birthday on the weekend. Come along." And I was like, dude, like, I don't know Danny, like, I don't know him, etc. You know, it's like, I don't want to gate crash his birthday, you know, after have not been formally invited, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, dude, it doesn't matter. It's just, people are going to come from all over the place. Just come along. So, we ended up going. And, and sort of that's where I met Danny. And actually, I didn't even speak to him that much on his birthday. I spent quite a lot of time with his parents, Max and Maxine. I spoke to them quite a lot, and it was really nice. And because obviously there was a swarm of people, you know, and obviously back then it was like, you know, the George Clooney of parkour, wasn't he? You know, like Danny Labaka. So it was just quite, there was a lot of people around and all that stuff. So I introduced myself, I said hi, you know, and that was pretty much it for the weekend. And that's how I met him the first time. And then the second time I met him, actually, I was quite surprised, because a friend of mine called Callum, not Callum Powell, Callum Strachan, he got a message from Danny saying that he was going to come to London, and Callum was supposed to pick him up from the airport, essentially. Sorry, not from the airport, from Euston. And Callum goes, hey, I'm going to go meet Danny at Euston. What are you doing today? You want to come? I said, yeah, cool. I've got nothing to do. I'll come along. And so I decided to go along. And I thought, sure enough, I'm going to have to reintroduce myself. This was like maybe a year or two after Danny's birthday. And I thought, sure enough, I'm going to reintroduce myself to Danny. Like, doubtfully he would remember who I am. There was a million people there and stuff. And we walked towards him, said hi, and as soon as he saw me, actually, he was like, "Hey, Farid, man, how are you?" And I was like, "Whoa," I was like, I had my hand out to reintroduce myself to him. I was sure enough he wasn't going to remember, and he was like, "Hey, Farid, how are you, man? It's a long time." And I was like, that's a bit like, like surprised essentially, I said, yeah, it's good, man. How are you? And then after that moment, actually, it was almost like we never skipped a beat. And it was strange. Yeah, just quite strange. I felt like I knew him that whole time, even though we didn't really talk that much. And that was kind of that, yeah.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. He does have that special something. I don't know, because when I met him, also I met him in 2013, but before, 6 months before, I think. And
before the Hong Kong gig, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
We met in Singapore because I was working for Superfly Monkey Dragons at the time.
Right.
And we organized the festival
with Derek.
With Derek. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
And we were organizing a festival which was supposed to be the biggest or the first festival, like parkour free running festival in Asia. So we invited Danny, and of course we met and we hung out all those days. But it wasn't too personal or too intimate for me because I was always working, so I was always worried about stuff. So that went along, and then in December, when we met again, I was actually very surprised the way that he came to me, like, "Hey man," like he had been my friend for so long and had just seen me, and he was like, "Oh shit, you're here, man! What?" Like I think
he's like that, man.
This is
weird,
he's
like
man.
That, yeah.
He is like that. He remembers people. He doesn't forget, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he is like that, man. So
it's a good memory.
I think it's quite nice. Yeah.
Tell me about a true parkour moment that you.
Truth be told,
that you
Alex,
experienced.
I don't have a. You mean with Danny or
with
just
or
in general?
Without Danny?
A parkour moment. That's quite a strange one. I'm not. What do you mean exactly by parkour moment?
All right. I'll try and explain the way I see it.
Yeah, go for it.
I've done a video.
Give me
about
some context.
Yeah, exactly. I've done a video about it, but it's in Portuguese. When I'm talking about, I'm talking about fear and how fear relates to your body and all that. And for me, a true parkour moment is when you have no preconception, no planning, no nothing. When it happens, and you just react.
Right.
That for me is a true parkour moment, when maybe you make a mistake and then you're forced to react, and then you actually come out clean out of it. That's one of the true parkour moments. It's not the only one, but it's a good one because it's just reaction. It's not a thought. So it's a mind-body connection, actually.
Right.
Where you just have to react and you come out clean because you really did parkour. The true parkour is when you don't plan to do parkour.
Yeah. Cool. I've got one for you, and actually, funny enough, this is not related to parkour at all. But I did think at that moment, had I not done as much training or parkour as I had done before, I would have probably been worse off.
Exactly.
It was quite a mundane moment, actually. I was just cycling along, and it was a freezing day, and I had my gloves in my pocket. So as you do, you go no hands, and I went for the gloves in the pocket. I was putting my gloves on, and it was quite windy as well. And I was riding past the buildings, and there was a gap in the buildings, so there was a bunch of crosswinds. As soon as I went past the gap, the crosswinds literally just took me out as I was going no hands. And I remember it was sort of an instinctive autopilot moment where I got crosswinded, and I sort of like straddled over my bike with my left leg because I was being pushed over to the right. I sort of straddled off the bike with the left leg, and I sort of like landed next to my bike on the floor and managed to somehow do a shoddy roll.
Yeah.
And I just got straight back up, and my bike was just like sliding along the floor right next to me, and I was like, I just sort of stood up, and I was like, at that point I knew that had I not done parkour essentially, or practiced rolling and falling and doing all the stuff we do, I thought I would have probably been way worse off. And there was a construction worker actually on the next to the building I was at, and he, funny enough, he was like clapping, going way, way, and I was like, dude, I just literally got taken out by the wind, like I fell off my bike here. But thanks for the clap. I think these types of moments, parkour moments, the physical ones, are very few and far between. I don't know if you agree.
I do agree.
You know, it's like you train all your life, essentially, or 15, 17 years, or whatever it is. And actually, I've had pretty much just that parkour moment, you know? Like,
you train your whole
parkour
life
moments that
for a moment that never
but that
comes.
are outside of parkour, because obviously when you're training parkour, you're having parkour moments all the time. You're doing whatever you're doing, precisions and this or vaults, and you slip and you have a parkour moment there within that context.
Yes.
But within a normal sort of everyday life context, they're actually very few and far between, aren't they? I find I've only had that one that I can remember of.
It's true.
You know, because a lot of people say, yeah, you know, train parkour, you know, you might need it one day. You might very well need it one day, but you might not. You know, it's a lot of dedication just to get off my bike, you know, safely one time. So mental parkour moments, I think. What I'm referring to, I think, essentially is when you put yourself out there physically, doing things like the kind of stuff we do, it's like putting yourself at risk. Essentially, it kind of gives you like a slightly skewed perspective on more mundane things. So, like, I remember I had a job interview once, and I was slightly nervous. And I was waiting to go in. And actually, as I was waiting to go in, I was thinking about all the horrendous stuff I'd done while training parkour, like all the risky situations. And I thought to myself, like, this doesn't even compare. I'm about to go into a room and just talk to another human. Like, you know? And I've been on, like sort of like horrendous situations that I've put myself in, and like I've come out all right, you know, and that was really stressful at the time. And you sort of like somehow you make that conscious connection in your head to think, yeah, I've been in worse situations than having to talk to someone in a room for 15 minutes, you know, and have them judge you essentially on your personality or whatever it is they might be looking for. So that kind of puts in perspective, I think. It kind of, I don't know, it allows you to be authentic in a way, you know, because when you're facing yourself with all these risky, challenging physical situations, I think you have to be authentic, you know. I don't know, yeah. That's kind of what I mean by it's given me a lot more mentally than it has, I think, physically. But there's obviously a connection there.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to thumbs up. Also share it with as many people as possible so everybody knows what's going on. And of course, subscribe to stay tuned for another episode of Word of Movement.